Thank you, Arthur, and I'd like to welcome everybody again today. It's lovely to see so many people that I've been talking with and to over the last few months. A lot of what we've been talking about over those months you'll see again today, because I think we've all posed lots of questions. Today is when we actually start to think about what some of those solutions might be. I guess the aim ultimately for all of us is to build an excellent careers system. But I guess the first question is there a problem? On your tables, you have this schematic. Whenever I've shown people that schematic, the answer is, oh boy, do we have a problem. Because put yourself at the centre of that as a user, as a kid of 15, trying to figure out where to get contiguous, good quality information to actually decide what they might want to do with their life and their career, where they might want to go to get the right training. It's horrendously complex. Worst of all, there's lots of gaps in it. I think we do have a problem, and today we're going to be asking you to help us to start to put this web together into a contiguous form so that the person at the centre, whether it's a kid, youth, an older person, can actually understand where they can go to get the information they need. Some of the problems with the system. Clearly the wheel that you see in front of you is confusing and discontiguous. It's very difficult to find a route through that if you don't know what you're doing. Secondly, that discontinuity actually causes a lot of churn, causes a lot of disruption, because there's a multitude of stakeholders, those of us in the room, plus many of us outside of this room, who are actually trying to do our best, but we're all doing it in isolation. We also come, as contributors, we also come with our own little view of the world. We're actually not joined up. We're very siloed in our delivery because we only deal with what we can. Most of us have funding shortages. Most of us have a focus just on a particular group of the community. But we're only dealing with what we can see in front of us. We're not necessarily looking at it from the user's perspective, and we're not looking at it from a lifelong career journey perspective. When users interact with the system, their response from us is spotty and discontinuous, a bit here and a bit there. At no time do we really get our act together and look at it from the user's perspective and map out a lifelong journey. You don't have to make decisions necessarily early on, but you have to open their mind to what's possible. Probably worst of all, up until recently, if you like, the demand side of the employment agreement between New Zealanders is very poorly represented. There's very little employer involvement, very little employer information that we can get into the heads and hands of kids to be able to help them to make the right decisions. Probably even worse, when you go out and ask the average New Zealander, what have you done about making proactive career decisions? Most of them probably don't know what you're talking about. Most of them probably don't even know how to spell the word career because they've never even thought about it. Certainly it's not front of mind. It's simply not something that we do. Worse than that, a lot of people think it's just for the wealthy flash people. It's for the professionals, it's for the educated, for the white people. They're the ones who can map out their career. It's not for me. What this results, of course, is that the individuals that are most at risk in our country actually are put further at risk because they don't give any credence, time or effort or energy to thinking about their career. They become the first victims of the low aspirations equals poor outcomes equation. And worst of all, this is a self-perpetuating cycle. You heard the Minister talk about sickness beneficiaries. And I'll repeat what she said. Of the 60,000 sickness beneficiaries we have in our country, 24,000 of those have absolutely no qualification at all. What hope have they got to ever get themselves off the benefit into useful employment? Why is it important to do something? Well, there's a lot of evidence out there that what we're talking about is not just a nice to have. There's a lot of evidence out there that when you do actually give kids the right information and you help them to make decisions, not necessarily intractable decisions that they will never change, but give them guidance, that the outcomes are improved. This is data from a UK Skills Commission report. People who are provided with high-quality career advice and education make better progress through the education system and are more likely to make successful transition and gain qualification. That's scientific data. That's not hearsay. That's not all of us in this room saying we think. That's real. Moreover, some of the data from New Zealand. Among those who withdrew from tertiary institutions, the most common reason given, 44%, was that they took the wrong course. So they didn't have the right information to make the right choice. That's from the New Zealand Council for Education Research. Some more statistics. 83% of young Maori and 82% of young Pacifica who attended a tailored career development seminar reported they were motivated to stay in school and or training. So when we get to people, when we actually get to them and open their minds, it actually does encourage them to think about what they can do with their life. And some of the typical feedback that we get through all of the many vehicles with which we touch New Zealanders, we get dozens and dozens of these every week. But here's some examples. This individual said, "It changed the way I learn at school. It has helped me with schoolwork. It just got to pull me head up." We get some really good Twitter and text language too. They've taught me all that basic stuff. And then one recently, one really scary one that we had. This student was telling us how great it was that the careers advice that we'd given them helped them. And then they tacked on the end, "For the first time, I've actually felt okay to be a Maori." "30% of students leave school with either no qualification or only NCEA level 1 in our country. 30%. 44% of tertiary students say they enrolled in the wrong course. Most employers we talk to say that about half of the people who turn up looking for jobs with them actually don't have any of the skills that the employer wants at all. Not the right skills. They don't have any skills that I can use as an employer. And some statistics that the Minister mentioned, 27.5% of 15 to 19-year-olds are unemployed. Over 40% of Maori and Pacifica in Manukau are actually not in employment, education or training. That's a shocking statistic. Think about it in a positive way. If we turn those numbers down to zero, what a tremendous improvement in our workforce we would have in New Zealand with skilled people who are currently not skilled and not contributing to our economy. There are a lot of benefits that we know about, but here's some of the things that I think I've heard everybody in this room say. Individuals making and taking good career decisions is widely acknowledged to have significant benefits, not just for the individual, but for the employer, and also for national, social and economic outcomes. Noted benefits that I've heard many of you talk about include increased retention, motivation and engagement of individuals in education and training, reduction in personal education costs. Students don't spend money on courses they're not going to use to advance their employment skills, reduced churn in the tertiary education sector, and as a result, the government gets a better return on its investment in that education sector. Clearly, a higher likelihood of individuals achieving fulfilling and sustainable employment. And better individual health, because it is much more fulfilling for you as an individual if you think you have hope, if you have aspirations and there's something you're working towards. Reduction in social issues for the same reason. Crime and unemployment are reduced and thus social costs are reduced. Improved completion rates for tertiary qualifications obviously leads to a more highly educated and skilled workforce. If you want to be purely fiscal about it, that's better tax revenue. You get better improved efficiency of the labour and skills supply, the supply-demand equation. You get increased employee motivation and engagement. And one of the key reasons why Careers New Zealand is trying to encourage us to develop a cohesive, excellent career system is we get increased business productivity and better economic outcomes for our country. What can you do? Well, some of the comments that we've used over the last few months when I've been talking to many of you, we've got to find ways to join the dots. We've got to take that wheel that's in front of you. We've got to find ways to cross the boundaries and stop people falling in the gaps between. Stop the duplication between our various agencies. Try and join up, reduce cost, reduce waste. Because one of the messages I think that we all know, but we don't actually shout it very loudly, is firstly, there is enough money out there to do this well already. And secondly, there is no more money. So we have to do better with what we've got. We've got to improve the access to information. You heard the Minister talk about this. Now, the website that Careers New Zealand runs could have so much more information in it if we were linked into many of you in the room in a better way, if we had more employer information. For example, if we could get some of the large employer groups in this country to think strategically about their workforce needs over the next 5 to 10 years, and that information was available on the website, well then kids who are choosing to take training, make training decisions would be better informed about what their potential employment will be at the end of their training. But we don't have that information. We're kind of flying blind so much of the time. Raising the awareness of New Zealanders about the criticality of active career decision making. We've got to make this thing called careers cool. And one of the side challenges I throw out to you today is, can we please think about a different word than careers? Within Careers New Zealand, we've been trying to think of a word that encapsulates what we mean, and we've come up with nothing that even gets close to a better alternative. But it's such an off-putting word. Most of all, we've got to get employers involved. We've actually got to get them taking accountability and responsibility for helping us solve this problem. In economic terms, the supply and demand equation has got to be fed from both ends. We've got to get better information on what employers are looking for. So today, in front of you, you've got a run sheet of what we're going to do. In a minute, Bernard Hickey is going to talk to us about his view of many of the issues and many of the opportunities. But today, what I want us to do is to look at the issues and most of all, look at the actions. We all know what the problem is. We actually don't need to spend too much time on what the problem is. We need to actually spend some time on what are we going to do about it. We want to begin the process of building an excellent career system. And I'll make a promise to you today that this is something that we are so passionate about that when we come up with some ideas, we will passionately push those over the next few years. This is not a one-off discussion. This is the start of a long journey which we are absolutely committed to delivering an excellent career system for New Zealand with you as participants, stakeholders and owners. Thank you.